If every last Space Marine died tomorrow, the Imperium survives. Killed the Imperial Guard, and it falls in days. Welcome, Initiate. You know the story the Imperium tells about itself. The Angels of Death, the Emperor's finest, 10 feet of ceramite and fury dropping from the sky to break the enemies of mankind. Every child on every world knows their legend, and there are statues in every temple and sagas that have been sung for 10,000 years. And then there is the other soldier, the one with no name, the one they hand a lasgun, a flak vest, and a number before feeding him into a war he will never walk out of. Nobody carves his statue, and nobody sings his saga, and the Imperium does not even bother to count him. His own masters admit they cannot tell you how many of him there are alive or dead. So this is the file on a lie. Not a lie about who is stronger, dear Initiate, because the Space Marine is clearly stronger, and I will not pretend otherwise, but a lie about who actually holds the Imperium together, and who it chooses to worship instead.
Let's start with the numbers, because the numbers are almost difficult to believe. There are, in the entire galaxy, roughly 1,000 chapters of Space Marines. 1,000 warriors to a chapter, give or take. That is 1 million Astartes. 1 million to defend 1 million worlds across a galaxy burning on every front at once. Let me put that in perspective for you, Initiate. There are cities on a single Imperial world that hold more people than there are Space Marines in all of creation. But let's tweak the numbers a bit. Multiply it by 5, by 10, and still there wouldn't be enough to cover the other side of the ledger. The Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard, numbers in the trillions. Yes, dear Initiate, with the T. So many that the Departmento Munitorum, the bureaucracy whose entire purpose is counting the Emperor's resources, has given up trying to count them. Every year, trillions more are tithed. It is said that if the Imperial Guard formed a single marching column, it would stretch from Terra to Armageddon. The Imperium has a name for each of them. The Space Marines it calls the Scalpel of the Emperor. The Guard it calls the Hammer. Let's hold on to those 2 words, Initiate, because the Imperium chose them, and in choosing them, it told the truth, without meaning to.
A scalpel is precise, a priceless tool. It does the one thing nothing else can do, and then it is put away for a later mission. That is basically the Space Marine. He does not fight the Imperium's wars. Let me explain, because the propaganda works so well, you have probably never questioned it. The Space Marines are not used for conventional campaigns. They do not hold the line for years. They don't garrison the wall. They descend. They cut out the heart of the enemy, an orc war boss, a hike ship, a breach that cannot be held by anything less, and then they are gone. A company of Marines accomplishes in an hour what would cost a mortal army thousands of lives. They are extraordinary soldiers for extraordinary missions. But they are also brief and thin in numbers. The Hammer does everything else. Which is to say, the Hammer does almost everything. The Guard holds the walls. The Guard garrisons the worlds. The Guard fights the decade-long attrition on the mud-drowned front while the enemy throws itself against them wave after wave. When a hive fleet descends, when a Wah breaks over a sector, when a black crusade pours out of the eye, it is not 1,000 Space Marines who meet it. It cannot be. There are not enough of them, and there never will be.
It is 100 million guardsmen standing in the open with laser guns, told to hold, and dying where they stand until the line holds or the world is lost. Think about what those two tools actually do. A scalpel performs the surgery, precise, irreplaceable, the star of the operation. But a hammer builds the room the surgery happens in. And no matter how fine the scalpel is, there is no operation until the hammer has built the table, the walls, the door. The cut everyone remembers is only possible because something less glamorous built the place where it could happen. And if you're the kind of initiate who'd rather remember the ones who built the room than the one who took the credit, then subscribe and stand with the IBN. We're the ones keeping the file open. Now, back to the question. Which tool could the Imperium truly not do without?
If you answered the scalpel, you're wrong. But if you answered the hammer, you're also wrong. Let me explain, dear initiate, because it was never a competition. A surgery needs both, the room and the blade, the hammer and the scalpel. Take away either one, and there is no operation, only a corpse. The Space Marine and the Guardsman are not rivals for the title of most important soldier. They are two halves of the same machine, and that machine only works when both halves turn together. If the Guard is the backbone, and the Imperium's own records say exactly that, without the Guard, mankind would perish, then why does the myth belong entirely to the other half? Here comes the harsh truth. Be prepared for it. A myth needs a face, and it is easier to worship one golden angel than a trillion dead farmers. The Space Marine is a story the Imperium can sell. Superhuman, immortal, descended from the Emperor's own gene craft, he is a god you can paint on a banner. The Guardsman is not a story. He is a statistic. He is the tithe, the casualty list that runs into the millions in a single day, the number the Munitorum files and forgets. You cannot build a religion around a number. So they built it around the scalpel, and they let the hammer die in the dark, unnamed, not because it mattered less, but because it could not be sold. And the cruelty of it, initiate, is that the Guardsman believes it too. He is raised on the same sagas. He goes to his death on some nameless world, genuinely believing that the angels in golden armor matter more than he does, that his life is the cheap thing and theirs is the precious one. He dies holding a line that keeps the entire Imperium standing, convinced to his last breath that he was the lesser soldier. He was not the lesser soldier. He was the other half of the machine, the half they chose to forget. At the start, I told you this was a lie, not about who is stronger, but about who gets remembered. One Astartes is worth 100 guardsmen in the field, and I would not send a mortal to do what a Marine can do. Clearly, they are stronger. But we already settled this, dear initiate. It was never a contest. The scalpel and the hammer are two halves of one machine, and the Imperium needs them both. So here is the only real question left. If it needs them both, why did it build a religion around one and bury the other in the dark? Because take away the Space Marines, and the Imperium loses its scalpel. Its wars grow longer, bloodier, uglier. It bleeds for years, and it survives. But take away the Guard, and there is no line, no wall, no garrison, no backbone. The worlds fall, one after another, with nothing mortal left to hold them, and the Imperium of man is gone. Not in years, but in days.
That is the half they chose to forget. Not the half that mattered less, the half the whole thing rests on. The Imperium carved its statues for the soldier it could most afford to lose, and left the ones it could never afford to lose in unmarked graves, unnamed, uncounted, convinced to the last that they were the lesser men. So decide for yourself, initiate. When an empire worships the blade and buries the foundation it stands on, is that the story of its finest warriors? Or is it the greatest act of propaganda in human history and the trillion dead who paid for it? The Illuminati broadcast network doesn't tell you what to think. Leave your assessment below. The Hammer Report is closed.